Hello and welcome back. Today's topic is going to be the roots of healing, and we have a guest with us, Charlie Rossouw.
Hi.
Welcome, Charlie.
Welcome. Thank you very much.
Charlie today is going to be speaking in his home language, and here and there he'll give us some English, but he'll be speaking his home language, which is Afrikaans. And a little about Charlie. He can also give you a little bit of feedback about himself, is that he is a life coach. And not only a life coach for individuals personally, but also in business, which he also does on a daily basis in his kind of business that he actually runs. So what's actually very nice about or cool about Charlie is that he was, I think it was 8 years ago, or for 8 years, you can actually rectify me.
Yes.
He was a psychologist, a child psychologist in schools. So it's
That's
very
correct.
interesting. Yeah. So that he actually worked with children, from the roots. So it's going to be a very interesting discussion on his perspective and about, healing from the roots and the, I don't want to say damage, but things that happen to us when we are children that actually hinder us as we grow as adults, creating holes in our personality. A little bit about myself is that, and those that haven't met me, I am Karin Kelly Lawrenz, and my approach, I'm a transformation coach, and my approach is more than simply about you learning, growing, or changing. It is about assisting you in taking that quantum leap forward in transforming your life on all levels, be it mentally, physically, emotionally, spiritually, and energetically. And the process takes courage and commitment to explore your conscious and unconscious thoughts, your attitudes, your beliefs, your programming, as we're going to be discussing from childhood, the rewards for having this courage and for allowing yourself to be supported in this process. It's life-changing as well as life-enhancing. And even this talk that we're going to have today about the roots of healing is a bit about becoming aware, and becoming aware, that's how your change starts to happen and eventually becomes organic, eventually creates transformation. So today we're going to speak about, and we don't have long, so we're just going to touch on the subject. There are going to be more videos that actually follow and talks, is about understanding how the mind can keep us trapped in cycles of emotion and struggle by trying to fix, ignore, or run away from what we are feeling. That's very easy to do. Rather than meeting it with direct, kind awareness. So 2 topics of discussion is going to be about the triggers that we experience and the emotional competence as being part of our healing process on our journey. So let's begin. When we are in fetus stage already as a young child, young baby, should I actually say, in the fetus stage, whatever's happening around us, whatever happened to the mother, that fetus already feels and experiences what is actually happening. And as a child is born, as in its young years, the roots, the world around us, the stress around us, the economy that's actually happened, what's happening in the family to the mother, whether it be from a stable home or not. There's certain things that actually transpire and actually happen in school. Um, as I said, what's happening around the world, this child actually feels energetically. So what happens is holes start to develop in this young child's personality. And in these holes, the child or you start filling it in with coping mechanisms. And those coping mechanisms aren't ours. So as we grow older, we have conflicting personalities within us. And that isn't schizophrenia. I'm talking about conflicting personalities, as in you must suffer with procrastination, or you feel down a lot, or depressed, or argumentative, or anger. So, and I'm sure Charlie has seen a lot of that as young children. And I'd love to know what went through his mind when he saw the young developing souls at a young age. What would actually transpire and how would they turn out? I'm sure, Charlie, you still think today, I wonder how so-and-so turned out. I wonder what so-and-so is
Ja,
doing nowadays. I'm sure you actually do.
ja, ja, ek wil net eers 'n bietjie van myself vertel oor
Ah,
hierdie
please.
onderwerp.
Yes, please.
Ek was baie kortliks op 27 weke gebore, so ek is 'n premature en almal van ons weet dat 'n premature is onderontwikkel, die longe fisies ehm gebrek aan suurstof ensovoorts. Maar ek was baie gelukkig om deur daai krisisperiode baba periode te kom, te groei, skool toe te gaan, selfs universiteit, in die onderwys vir 21 jaar. Die langste periode daarvan was ek 'n skoolsielkundige, en dan ook lewens afrigters, Afrikaans, life coach is maar vir my eintlik die lekkerste woord. Waar ek geleentheid gehad het om ook met mense te werk en dit was my belangstelling oor ek daai ervaring gehad het. En net kortliks my ervaring was dis alom bekend dat 'n premature het 'n agterstand veral in die vroeë ontwikkelingsstadiums. So my hele existence wil ek amper sê van wat ek kan onthou as 'n kind voorskool en toe veral die aanvangsonderwys in SAP A en die ou SAP B wat ons gehad het, dat ek onder geweldige druk gevoel het om by te bly. What they say, to catch up. En dit was wat my hele leefwyse en bestaan was rondom dit gefokus, om myself te handhaaf teenoor my ouderdomgroep, my peer group. En soos ek in die hoërskool gekom het ek die geleentheid gehad en die voorreg gehad om te ontdek ek het 'n bietjie talent in sport, en vandat ek toe veral in die senior fase na matriek toe begin presteer in sport, het dit vir my regtig gehelp om vorentoe te gaan, om 'n bietjie meer vir myself te handhaaf, om selfs suksesvol in universiteit te kon gaan. Maar kortliks wil ek net sê dat ek het my hele lewe lank, selfs nou nog, as ek in 'n drugsituasie kom, dan val ek terug in hierdie ou ervarings wat ek gehad het van
triggers.
Ek moet the press en die stress dat ek moet bybly, ek moet kan perform, ek moet kan I must be able to deliver.
Ja.
En daai fokus het eintlik gemaak dat ek ten spyte van dat ek skoolsielkundige was, lewenskou afrigter, dit het tog gemaak dat ek agterkom dat ek het nie regtig my volle potensiaal ontwikkel nie. Omdat ek so daai ervaring en my fokus op to catch up was so oorheersend dat ek nie behoorlik gepresteer het nie. So briefly, dat is my ervaring uit my kinderjare.
Hmm.
En
Do you know, sorry,
now you can carry on.
is that what Charlie is mentioning is triggers. And from his childhood, that still show its head as an adult, no matter how he has actually worked on himself. Occasionally, those triggers appear, okay, and it is that he's aware, and his trigger is not being good enough, and having to prove himself as a young child, looking very, very hard. And there are certain instances that happen in one's life that show its head. I'm going to tell you a story of a doctor and abandonment. And it was during the Jewish and the German the World War. I can't remember now. World War One or two. I've gone blank. And when he was 1 year old, his mother took him onto the street as a young baby and walked past a stranger and gave him to a stranger on the street. And she did this for his survival, for him to live, for him to move forward in life. She had to, otherwise he would have been killed. But as he grew older, he did not see it as a young child. He did not see it as his mother doing the best for him. Many of us don't see that as a young child. What we see is, I wasn't good enough. They didn't want me. I was abandoned. So what happens is, in one's life, we tend to compensate for it. The fix, run, ignore. So he became a very successful doctor. He's written, I cannot think of his name or remember his name right now, but he has written many books. He is a world-renowned speaker, and very successful. But he focused all his time on that. When his phone rang, he picked up. In essence, he became addicted. In others, a workaholic. His family suffered. He himself actually suffered because he wasn't looking after himself. Why did you do that? At that moment and that time that he was actually doing those things, he didn't think that he was compensating for something. He wasn't fixing or running or ignoring. He didn't think of that. He needed his existence to be validated because a sense of worth was undermined when he was a year old. And what happened to him is he still gets triggered every so now and again. And when does he get triggered? Most likely, he said that he gets triggered by his loved one, his wife, where there's a disagreement or an argument, and the old wounds come up of abandonment, past hurts. So most triggers, illnesses, mental illnesses, etc., come from coping mechanisms. And when I actually learned that, I went, oh my, serious. And that people adapt early in life, which functions as a source of triggers, dysfunctions, etc. Example, suppressed anger can lead to illnesses. So, like Charlie was actually saying that every so now and again, those things get triggered within himself. And he then becomes aware and does certain things to actually move forward. Um, Charlie, what do you do when something like that happens to you, when you get triggered and past hurts come up, as in, I'm not good enough? You're under stress and you get, from one of your clients, you get a comment or whatever, and just that very quick backlash of suddenly not feeling good enough, with that funny feeling within yourself. What do you do to actually move forward, to actually get out of it? Can you give us a short um,
Ja,
message on what you actually do?
ja, kyk, die belangrikste is dat as jy terugval en hierdie ervarings ervaar, dit kom veral onder druktoestande. 'n Mens onderdruk daai ervarings wat jy in die verlede gehad het, en onder sekere stres of druktoestande, uh, dan trigger dit af en jy verloor selfbeheer en daai ou gedrag en paniek of die gedragspatrone wat jy gehad het, kom weer uit. So die eerste ding was, omdat ek gelukkig was om sielkunde te kon loop op Stellenbosch, en ek in kringe beweeg het wat mense oor jou persoonlike emosies en wat ook al gepraat het dit my bewus gemaak van my eie negatiewe ervarings, om altyd te probeer catch up en te cope en eintlik minderwaardig te voel ook. So nommer 1, jy moet bewus wees daarvan. En op 'n manier moet jy 'n proses hê of iets soos coaching of iemand wat jou help om 'n bietjie, jy moet bewus word daarvan. En sodra ou bewus het, moet jy ook die behoefte hê om daai gedrag te verander om sukses te behaal. En dan die derde punt is, en dan moet 'n ou, soos ek al gesê het, soos jy leer om fiets te ry. Jy die eerste keer op 'n fiets klim. Ek het gisteraand hierso verby gery in die Perle, man en 'n vrou met hul seentjie met 'n helmet op, en elke keer as hom los, dan val hy om. So jy leer van die begin af hoe op die fiets, eers om die balans te kry, en dan oor 'n tydperk, dan kom daai gedrag outomaties, of daai skill, daai vaardigheid wat jy het. So dit is half die proses. Ek moes gaan sit en vir myself besluit, net soos wanneer ou enige probleem het, moet jy besluit jy wil dit verander en jy wil dit aanspreek, en dan moet jy dit deur 'n proses, amper soos die fietsryproses, moet jy 'n poging aanwend, 'n doelbewuste poging aanwend, om dan jou denke en jou strategieë te verander na waar soos wat ou in die algemeen het, wat meer positief is en waarin jy beter sukses dan kan doen en jy meer ook 'n gelukkige persoon is dan.
Yeah, you know that. I mean, what does it say about us that we, at my age, that I still get triggered? And it's actually, and that awareness is what triggered me? What exactly triggered me? And go back, because a lot of triggers are unhealed wounds that we actually need to work on ourselves. So instead of just becoming aware and suppressing it, is to become aware, as in fully aware, on why and what happened that I was triggered. In other words, he spoke to me disrespectfully. Now, what about him speaking to you disrespectfully triggered you? And I didn't like the way I actually felt. Correct, but go back. Were you treated in the past as a young person, as somebody in school, or had a bad experience in your work circumstance, that this is now a trigger point for you, and to actually work on that. And I mean, this 75-year-old, he's actually 75 years old, and he's still, not often, but gets triggered by an old wound when he was 1 year old. So what does that say about us? And, we feel that when you work on a trigger of, for instance, abandonment or not being good enough, it's then gone. We can move on, it's never going to happen again, not going to appear, and it sneaks in. Not as much as what it used to, but ever so now and again it just sneaks in. It's because for most of us, it's a journey. Others, like Eckhart Tolle, he happened to wake up one day and was enlightened. So some people, it's an event. But for most of us, it's a journey. And by the way, it doesn't mean Eckhart Tolle doesn't work on himself. He continues to actually work on himself. So for many, it's a process over time, going deeper and deeper into your healing and uncovering process in getting closer and closer to your soul's essence. Which by doing that can create a what they say, a better you, a more enlightened you, your soul's purpose, more aligned, better in communication, better as a leader, and better as a friend, a partner. Getting your soul's essence is what even Charlie, as you were saying, practices today. Doesn't mean it doesn't get triggered. And one thing is that it's not an intellectual process. So, no matter how many books you read and courses you take, teachers you have, coaches you have, psychologists you have, yes, it is knowledge. Don't get me wrong, it's knowledge. And yes, you do learn from it. But it has to happen on a deeper level and becoming enlightened, deeper level within working on yourself. So if you do read that book, you go see that coach, is that the work that you do on yourself to reach deeper at a deeper level is then becoming enlightened and getting to your soul's essence. If that doesn't make sense, down below there's a little banner that's moving across the screen. You can contact Charlie or myself so we can actually go deeper and look into it. So I didn't even want to say anything more on that topic, Charlie, before we move on to emotional competence.
Ja. Ek sal graag 'n bietjie uit my ervaring as 'n skoolsielkundige.
Oh yes, please. Yes, please.
Yes, ons praat nou van roots of healing en die eintlik die leemtes of die kinders leer en reageer op insidente wat met hulle gebeur het en hulle ken as 'n kind of 'n voorskool klein baba ken al niks anders as die voorbeeld van die ouers en die optrede van die ouers teenoor die kinders nie. So een van die gevalle op skool wat my verskriklik eintlik hartseer gemaak het en een wat ek nou nog baie duidelik kan onthou was in toe ek in die een van die skole in die Kaapse vlakte in een van die laerskole gewerk het hulle daar 'n kind gehad wat sy gedrag wat hulle noem onbeheerbaar was. Ons het hom amper geklassifiseer op die ou end as onopvoedbaar, want hy het nie gekommunikeer met jou nie. As die fokus op hom was en hy het iets verkeerd gedoen, het hy in 'n hoek gaan sit en soos 'n dier geleide gemaak.
What is
En
unvoedbaar? Sorry, Charlie. What is unvoedbaar?
sorry.
What is you diagnosed him as something that
Okay,
Afrikaans
no,
word?
it's just that you um, I would say in English unteachable. You can't uh, and his control was just he was there were no self control and based on that you he was a huge disruption in the class and
Okay.
and he didn't so they had to remove him and hulle moes vir hom op die ou end in 'n spesiale inrigting gaan sit dit. Ehm die agtergrond is dat sy pa is 'n bendeleier en sy pa het hom van baie kleins af blootgestel om dagga te rook. So dit het al klaar in sy verstandelike ontwikkeling 'n baie groot negatiewe invloed gehad en ook die aggressie en die alles wat rondom sy pa gegaan het en sy optrede wat altyd baie aggressief was en met geweld was. Dit was hoe hy op die ou end op skool gereageer het. So as die juffrou hom kwaad gemaak het, het hy uitgeloop uit die klas, 'n baksteen gevat en haar kar so lekker die verf afgekrap en of hy sy hond met bakstene en 'n kiddie of 'n mes skool toe gebring om die kinders wat om terg aan te vat. So dis een van die mees ekstreemste gevalle van as ons wat 'n mens kan sien van hoe 'n kind ontwikkel het uit 'n omgewing wat daai negatiewe invloede en al voorbeeld wat hy gehad het en wat 'n groot impak op dit hom gehad het dat daar amper nie dat 'n mens hom amper nie kon 'n voorspelling kon waag dat hy suksesvol erns kon gaan leer het of opgevoed word nie. So dit was net vir my 'n baie hartseer storie.
That's, many of us don't, I don't know. There are some extreme cases that happen to us at root level.
Yeah.
And I pray that he found the resource, and I've heard of many a case, but found the source of the resource to enable him to healing and moving forward. So one tends to want to think that's a case that you can actually write off, but it's not. And I'm sure Charlie can speak on a psychologist's side, a point of view, is that some people, they are so damaged and cannot be healed. Oh yes, they will have scars, many scars on them, but scars they can actually talk about and tell stories about to where they are today. So I pray that he was able to work on a deeper level and become enlightened. And that's why you have people like myself and Charlie and other coaches and psychologists out there to aid you to actually move forward and become enlightened. So because we're running out of time, let's go on to the subject of emotional competence. And when we think of emotional competence, is like when you see somebody, you're looking at somebody and you're thinking, oh wow, they're emotional competent. What does it mean? It means that we are present. We don't take things personally. And it's an art. It takes practice. And it means that our response to a situation is not taken personally. but corresponds to the current situation and not governed by past impressions, past hurts, past experiences. When you're having disagreement with a partner, not to bring up past hurts, past experiences, because it's not the current situation. It's about being present. And it's like you saying, and you listen to this talk and you say, Karin, I was bored with this conversation, with this talk. I was really, really bored. And I would take it that that it was a statement about you, not me. And I wouldn't allow it to undermine my sense of value. And I wouldn't get angry with you. I would say things like, I'm curious as to why you say that. What's happening for you right now? So by getting upset or taking it personal will reinforce your past hurts, low self, perhaps your abandonment or not being good enough. Issues will get triggered again. Or going into a rage to protect the sadness and disappointment, which you are not emotionally competent at all. It's not emotionally competent. However, it's a high bar to set. I mean, hello. How you think to yourself, then you must be perfect because I'm not emotionally competent at all. And there's another layer to this, is that when you get riled up, that you simply become aware. And before I go on to a story, I'm going to ask Charlie to give a story about emotional competence.
Well, ek het oor myself kan ek as 'n ou nou as ek saam met my vrou ry en ek is laat en ek is haastig en jy voel geïrriteerd en al die robots slaan rooi en ewe skielik kom 'n ou hier uit die bloute en hy ry voor jou in en onmiddellik trigger dit 'n reaksie, 'n woede reaksie of 'n aggressiewe reaksie af en jy sal hoed of vir die oue teken wys of by die kar skree en ek het dit alself oorgekom 'n paar keer. Ek baie keer reageer ek sonder om te dink op die situasie wat gebeur. En dan het my vrou vir my dan gekritiseer wat my nog kwaader gemaak het en dat
Constructive criticism.
Ja, maar dan wanneer ek nou kalm raak en ek gaan ek probeer eerlik met myself wees, is nie altyd maklik nie. En te sê maar hoorie, as ek emosioneel competent was, dan sou ek na my vrou se kritiek geluister het dat sy eintlik reg was. Wat kon ek eintlik regkry of verander om nou so, soos hulle in Engels sê, 'n tantrum te gegooi het teenoor die ou? Jy gaan niks verander daaraan kry nie. So die volwasse ding was om te doen was om dan net te probeer dat jy dan veilig is en te sorg dat daar nou nie 'n onnodige insident soos 'n ongeluk of selfs padwoede plaasvind nie. Maar op daai oomblik is dit baie moeilik om dit te erken dat ek verkeerd was en dat ek eintlik as ek meer emosioneel volwasse of competent was, ek die situasie heeltemal op 'n ander kalm en volwasse manier kon hanteer het.
But that doesn't mean, that emotional competence doesn't mean not being triggered. So it's taking responsibility when emotions get triggered. I had to laugh when you were actually telling the story because I can tell a story or two about things like that. So I had a good laugh. Actually, what transpired right now was if you hear like horses galloping on the audio, it's my cats running on the wooden floors. And I started getting triggered, irritated, coming into my space. I'm trying to record. And I became suddenly, I became aware. And I thought, okay, let me just tell the viewers, if you hear horses galloping, it's my cats running in the passageway on the wooden floors. I'll tell you another story is that this speaker was coming from a very, very successful talk. And he really felt good about himself. He says, I've got this. I've really got this. And got off the plane thinking about this and feeling good. Took his luggage, switched his cell phone on because his wife was going to pick him up at the airport. And when he switched his cell phone on, he got a message from his wife saying, do you still need me to pick you up? I'm still at home. And I think it was on a I think it was a 23 or 32 hour flight. He had a couple of flights to take. Anyway, so what happened to him and his wife's an artist, and most artists, which Charlie's wife as well, she's also an artist, they get lost in their own world. What's time? And he was triggered. He was so angry. He went through the schlep of having to hire a taxi, an Uber, and got home, totally ignored his wife. You was mad. In Afrikaans, I think they say, and caused a argument, caused bad energy between him and his wife. So how could you have handled that differently on the emotional competence level? I'm not saying that you wouldn't get triggered when you got that message, but his old abandonment issues came up from the past. And being triggered, yes, it would be nice to have his wife. You said you would come and pick me up, but to actually look with it within himself and see where it was actually coming from instead of taking it out on his wife. So I say again, emotional competence, being emotionally competent doesn't mean not being triggered, but taking responsibility when emotions get triggered. I'm going to end this talk off. I need what Charlie wants to say something quickly.
Ja, ek wil net ten slotte oor emotional competence sê, dis baie interessant as 'n mens kyk na professionele sport. Mense wat internasionale vlak deelneem. Jy sal in die tennis top 10 mans tennisspelers in die wêreld het genoeg talent en skills om 'n groot toernooi te wen. Maar die persoon wat dit wen, as jy gaan kyk na die ouens wat bo uitkom, is die ouens wat daai vaardigheid ontwikkel het van emosionele competence. En dis hulle wat onder druk situasies kan kalm bly en die regte besluite neem. En dis die verskil kom in hulle emosionele competence of vaardigheid uit.
Yeah, totally agree. So we're going to end this talk. Charlie, thank you for joining us. It was wonderful having you here on the talk. And just remember to become aware and not to get trapped in these cycles of emotional struggle. And meeting it with direct, kind awareness. So I'm going to bid you goodbye. And until we meet again. And be safe.
Dankie en totsiens.